New details tonight on Donald Trump's reported plan to pardon several people accused or convicted of war crimes. The New York Times sources two U.S. officials saying Donald Trump is now requesting official paperwork for pardons that he would issue by Memorial Day. Now, if you think any of this sounds unusual, that's because it is. Very few presidents ever try to overturn convictions for war criminals because, among other reasons, presidents don't want to look like they support war criminals. One of these soldiers, for example, is on trial, accused of horrific murders of unarmed individuals. Navy SEAL Edward Gallagher facing charges of killing an unarmed man and a young girl with sniper rifles, basically a sniper rifle attack that occurred in Iraq, as well as stabbing a teenage captive to death and firing a machine gun aimed at civilians. Now, it was Gallagher's own platoon, not outsiders, who basically reported this string of conduct, saying they saw him commit, quote, shocking acts in Iraq. Now, Gallagher's lawyer insists he's innocent. The others, for example, are a private contractor that was already convicted of first-degree murder that Trump might pardon, and a Marine charged with, quote, urinating on the corpses of dead Taliban fighters. A pardon in any of these cases would be a radical departure from the way most American presidents across party and history have ever dealt with anything touching on war crimes. A bipartisan consensus, not a red or blue issue. A belief stated by our military leaders and by our political leaders that, if nothing else, the military has to stand for higher values.
We stand ready to do our part to prevent mass atrocities and protect basic human rights.
We must recognize that the internment of Japanese Americans was just that, a mistake. Here we admit a wrong. Here we reaffirm our commitment as a nation to equal justice under the law.
That is what it looks like when a president takes responsibility for acts that, even taken in military emergencies, were deemed a violation of law or human rights. So many are asking, why is Trump considering this right now? Well, a little context, absurd as it may sound, is one of the other random pardons that Trump seized on came after his meeting with Kim Kardashian. This one comes after lobbying by a Fox News anchor, which would explain this reaction on Fox and Friends as that person praises Trump's move in front of the camera.
I can't stand that headline, accused of war crimes. They're not war criminals, they're warriors. This is very heartening for guys like me and others in the service who look at the previous administration. You had a culture of coddling and not defending the warfighter. Trump's done a total 180 on that.
Yeah. There is a 180 here. It is the 180 against the tradition for generations, as mentioned. Presidents in both parties and military leaders publicly committing to the rule of law, which means acknowledging and accepting when the rule of law finds, in what are obviously quite rare cases, that war crimes have occurred. Joining me now for this important discussion is Paul Rieckhoff. He founded Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. He hosts the podcast Angry Americans and served as an Army first lieutenant and platoon leader in Iraq. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, sir.
What do we need to know about this?
Here we are. Like, I'm having a discussion with you on television trying to explain to the president why pardoning war criminals is a bad idea. I mean, this is a new moral low for us at a time where it seems like bad stuff's coming out every day. A perspective I think people lose here is the military has rules. The military has courts. The military has the Uniform Code of Military Justice. This is the ultimate insult to our military. To have a president jump in, the commander-in-chief jump in and say, you know what, I don't care about what you say. I don't care about what you rule. I don't even care if you've found a decision yet. I'm going to blow it all up. So it's really a disrespect to our military. It blows up our world standing. And we're supposed to be the good guys, right? When we go into places overseas, we're in 40% of the world. We're usually greeted as the good guys because we abide by the rule of law and the Geneva Convention. This throws all that out the window.
Yes, and you say that, and I want to read from more of the admittedly dispiriting reporting about some of these crimes, which I mentioned are rare. But when busted, the New York Times talks about how it was this one individual's comrades who reported the killings and were initially told, well, the Navy might not look kindly on rank-and-file team members making allegations against a senior commander, and their careers could be sidetracked and their elite status revoked. And yet, and this is where I think there is a silver lining amidst the horror, and yet those soldiers said, no, We represent something else.
Right.
And there is, as you said, a uniform code of military justice, and there are rules, and they took whatever career risk, and the system in this case appeared to work because he got a trial. And as I mentioned, in this one instance, his trial will proceed, and we'll see what happens. The notion that the president would intercede to override that and then say that's pro-military, your reaction to that is what?
These are not liberal reporters who are testifying against this guy. These are 6 other Navy SEALs, right, who have put themselves out there and I think really are showing what soldiers should do, what our troops should do. Be courageous, abide by the law, honor that warrior code. For the president to come in, also, let's play devil's advocate here. The guy hasn't even been found guilty yet, right? Like, let's let this run its course. And then if he wants to make a statement about it, fine, but respect the rule of law within the military.
And what do you think? I know you don't like to speak for too many other soldiers, but you did lead a soldiers group, a veterans group. When soldiers hear that Donald Trump wants to pardon someone who was convicted of urinating on other dead soldiers, does that sound pro-military to them?
No, there's nothing about this that's pro-military. I mean, he wants to do this on Memorial Day, which would be the ultimate thumb in the eye of our military on a day that should be about honoring those who we lost for generations. So outside of a few radical fringe elements and maybe people who are personally connected to these people, I haven't seen anybody defend this on moral grounds, on legal grounds, on ethical grounds. This would be rock bottom for us as a nation morally and for our military, and would shatter us for decades if the world sees that our president lets people go when they break the law in a place where discipline and good order is essential. It's unprecedented. Yeah,
it's our job to put words to these stories. When I first read this, I thought, there's no words for this. Paul Rieckhoff, we learned about these issues a lot from you. I appreciate you coming back on the beat.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.